Talking with John Ryan about the football openers for this week, and now we'll move on to college football week 3. There's a bunch of lines that caught my eye as pretty valuable. Let's first talk about the Mississippi State LSU game on Thursday night. Mississippi State is a home dog, 3.5 points. But LSU had a very easy week last week and a very easy win, and Mississippi State had their tough game against Auburn. I've read on the forum a lot of people are sort of wary of this game. They think that Mississippi State is a home dog on a Thursday night game, which is usually a good bet, is a trap here because LSU is just so much better in all areas. What do you think about this line?
Well, this is kind of interesting because Mississippi State was supposed to give it to Auburn this past weekend. They were, I think, 6 or 7 point favorites at one point, and they ended up losing to Auburn. And the Auburn offense, without Cam Newton, absolutely just shredded the Mississippi State defense. That surprised me. I think of all the games this past weekend in college football, that defense really was quite poor. So Louisiana State coming into Mississippi State on a Thursday night primetime game is a difficult assignment. Nonetheless, being favored by 3 is probably about the right number. Mm-hmm. I haven't crunched anything, and I haven't run my simulator, so I really don't have a strong opinion right now. But I wouldn't be surprised if Louisiana State ends up being a play here.
Right. And then what do you think about Temple plus 9.5 at home against Penn State? Penn State, of course, were themselves a 10-point home underdog to Alabama and got shellacked. And Temple usually plays Penn State relatively tight. They came within, I think, 9 points last year. Now they're at home, getting 9.5 points against Penn State. What do you think about this line? You think Temple has some value?
I actually think Penn State has a value, Peter. Mm-hmm. Not to contradict you, but you have a team like Temple who's had 2 games now that they just destroyed their opponent.
Right.
And that gets the public, kind of enamored with Temple. Like, Temple is going to be a lot better than last year even. And Penn State's coming off a poor performance against Alabama. They were outclassed by Alabama. And we could see that Penn State is going to struggle in multiple areas of the game. So I think, if anything, the line is kind of lower than what I expected. Mm-hmm. This game is going to be played, I believe, at Lincoln Financial, where the Eagles play in Philadelphia. So they may draw a pretty big crowd there. But believe me, in Philadelphia, there's a lot more Penn State fans than Temple Owl fans.
Right.
So this will almost be like a home game for Penn State, even though it's going to be in Philadelphia.
Okay.
So I kind of like Penn State in this situation.
All right, and then there's 3 other lines that I want to get your take on. All of them struck me as likely having value. I did bet them on the opening, and that's Virginia plus 10.5 at North Carolina, Duke plus 7.5 at Boston College, a team that doesn't have much offense and doesn't quite get big wins, and then Troy plus 24.5 at Arkansas. Arkansas has some injuries, and Troy, of course, came within 3 points on the road of a great Oklahoma State team last year. What do you think of those 3 lines?
The Troy game is intriguing because they're a solid team.
Yeah.
And as we know, they're an Alabama team, and they're well coached. And getting 24.5 against Arkansas, I kind of have a lean towards Troy.
Right.
Moreover, the public is actually coming in on Arkansas.
Oh, wow.
So to see the public money coming in this early, I wouldn't be surprised to see that line get up as high as 26. And then I think you have some real good value on Troy.
It's actually gone down, though. It opened at 24.5. Now it's like 23.5.
Troy giving up 35 points to Arkansas. And then if that happens, then Troy only has to score 7.
Okay. And then what do you think about Toledo, Boise State? Toledo, of course, was called by Laker Boy, I believe, called Toledo a great bet last week against Ohio State. They got a very easy cover. Now they're 17-point home dog against Boise State, but Boise State looked great against Georgia. And, Toledo might have burned themselves out on that Ohio State game. What do you think?
I think you're right. Mm-hmm. I actually had a winner there of that Ohio State game. It was a very nervous game because that's the type of situation where you either look good or you look really, really bad. Right. Going up against a powerhouse team like Ohio State that's retooling this year with all their problems, they're still a very, very good team.
Right.
I think Boise State clearly proved in week 1 how good they are. And I don't think they're going to have any problem whatsoever handling Toledo in Toledo.
Okay, and then let's get your take on one other line that people have been talking about. That's Syracuse plus 15 at USC. Now, USC They got a 2-point win as I think a 22-point favorite over Minnesota, who's not a very good team. So some people are looking at this and seeing Syracuse at getting 15 points as a good bet. But I'm not so sure about that. Syracuse does have to travel cross country. I think I'm going to stay off this game. What do you think about that line?
I like Southern Cal here. Again, you highlighted all the necessary points. They have to travel across country. And Syracuse struggled against Wake Forest in their first game. Remember, it took overtime to beat Wake Forest.
Right.
And Wake Forest then went on to lose to North Carolina. Well, I'm sorry, they actually beat North Carolina State, I think, this past week, if I'm correct. Nevertheless, point is, Wake Forest is not a good team. And if Syracuse needed overtime to beat them at home, having to travel across country against an obviously superior USC team, I mean, think about it. USC is going to be better at every single skill position on the field.
Sure.
So this is a game that has potential to get pretty ugly pretty quick.
Right. I agree. All right. We'll see what the Handicappers Roundtable guys have to say about these lines and others later on in the week. Look for that. And thanks so much, John Ryan, for talking to us about the openers.
No problem. Thank you for having me, Peter.